Колегата Васил Методиев може да каже няколко думи за работата
да кажа само няколко думи. Колегата е бакалавър, той е студент в нашия университет, дошъл от интегрална предавност. Учи в университет в Лиза, факултет по бизнес администрация и има много ясно изразени интереси в областта на националната сигурност. Тази насока има някакви европейски сертификати, вече, които той самостоятелно се занимава. Проблема, който той ще ги представи, е съвсем пресен. Ние буквално той започна работа по него, когато се появи на бял свят. Втората част, която се отнася за клиентите, дори той беше започнал да разработи изпреварите в казването, което ще видите. Така че тя е много тясно свързана с властта на информационната сигурност, с която той иска да се занимава по-нататък в процеса на цялата работа.
Well, good morning. I'm really excited to be here today with you, not just as a part of Symposium, but being a part of the research community. My name is Mohammed Hisham, and I'm from Egypt, and I'm Erasmus Humanist student. And my supervisor is Dr. Metodi, and I wanted to thank him because he helped me very well to do my work properly. My talk today is going to be about what's called the Heartbleed OpenSSL client on server protocol vulnerability. But before heading to the main idea, I wanted to introduce some concepts for you. As we know, the internet has become an important part of our life. We are not just clicking around, but we are dealing with a lot of information and data that has to be protected and secure over the internet. And this data, like emails, usernames and passwords, like credit card credentials on the online websites. And those data, we have to ensure our confidentiality and integrity, authentication, access control, and availability and non-repetition of the data. And by those, I wanted to ask you my question. How many of you have used popular websites like Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, and Gmail, Yahoo.com? How many of you? I think all of you. All of us have used those websites. So I wanted to thank my people in Egypt because the Egyptian people were the first people to use the encryption algorithms. And the idea of encryption is to make the information that sends from one computer to another computer is being protected and secured. And you can think of the encryption like a message, but it's a secret message between two people. They have to share some public and maybe private key session encryptions. And I'm talking about the encryption because it's my concern today. It's about confidentiality of the data. And the internet has a set of protocols to provide the confidentiality of the data. It has what's called the TLS SSL function. And I mean the TLS, it means the transport layer security and secure socket layer. And it's abbreviation for TLS and SSL technical stuff. And I wanted to introduce those protocols because the problem, actually, it will be lies on one application that uses the TLS protocol. And for those protocols, I want also to say that what's called the TLS heartbeat extension, if we are going to use the confidentiality of the data, we have to use what's called the TLS heartbeat extension. And as you can see, the TLS heartbeat, it's the concept that the client has to talk to the server. And he is talking by sending a message. This message is consisting of a payload. This payload typically a text message. And it may be 4 letters. For example, it's exam word. And the server has to send the same payload back to the client. But imagine if there's someone in the middle and he is crafting this message, what will happen? And this is our problem. I'm going to discuss the Heartbleed bug here because the attacker can craft this request. In very malicious way. And you can see here this is a normal use of heartbeat extension when the client is sending packets to the server. But the attacker is going to craft this request in a very malicious way. He is going to say that the payload is 4 letters. As I mentioned, it's exam word. But he is saying the length of the payload is 4,000 characters. But the actual value is 4 letters. And the problem is, the OpenSSL is using this value blindly, regardless of the actual value. Because here in this example, the actual value is bogus, and the OpenSSL uses this value. So it's missing bounce check. It's a programming mistake. The programmer of the OpenSSL doesn't check the value that the program mentions. And the attacker said that the length of the word exam is 4,004 letters. And what will happen? The server, as a response, will send the same payload back to the client, and in this case to the attacker. And he will send the word exam, but he will also send 4,000 letters in addition. And those 4,000 letters may contain a sensitive data, like your password, your emails, your username, and your credit card credential, maybe. But the worst part of this bug is that the attacker can use it in 2 ways. And in the first scenario, we were using this bug targeting the server, like the web server, like Amazon web server, for example. But in the second scenario, we are going to attack the client. And the attacker is going to initiate a malicious web server. And this web server is going to send some packets to the client. Maybe it's a link inside email, or maybe it's a poster on the Facebook or on Twitter. And we all like those, to click it. And when it connects to the client as a response of the Heartbeat extension, it will send the same payload pack to the attacker, and it may contain some confidential data, as I mentioned before. So I wanted to say the problem could be used in 2 ways, and it's very serious, because the real problem was only coding mistake. So please, any programmer has to be careful when he did his program, because the security is a main concern today. And I wanted to talk about the Heartbleed Bug impact on the industry and why it's a very serious problem. And it's a very serious problem because it's operating without detection. You can notice it's operating without your knowledge. And it's a very dangerous thing. And the second thing, the Netcraft website survey said that 500,000 of websites will be vulnerable to this attack. Imagine that. 500,000. It's really a big number. And if you still remember when I'm asking you who is using G+, YouTube, and Gmail, Yahoo.com, and Amazon, those websites were vulnerable to this bug. All of those websites. But the financial institution actually were safe for this bug. And it was my surprise that something could be survived from this bug. And I want also to discuss with you fixing the problem. And in my opinion, fixing the problem is not simple, because all security researchers mention solutions, but it's very not useful, because the Heartbleed bug were discovered in April 2014. But this vulnerability has been around since December 2011. So the age of this bug is 2 years. And imagine, maybe any person or any organization have taken advantage of this vulnerability. And we don't know. Maybe yeah, maybe no. And we cannot go back in time and discuss this problem because it's 2 years later the problem. And I want to also to emphasize something very serious. If someone was able to sneak the digital certificate of the website and he has some public or private key sessions to encrypt or decrypt this message, and I'm using the patch of the OpenSSL to debug the problem, it's not useful. Because if he has the key, he can use your website in a very malicious way because he has the key. So the patch in this way will not be successful. Finally, I wanted to discuss my security suggestion. The first one, we have to check whether our website or our hardware or our software, anything that uses OpenSSL connection, if it's vulnerable or not. And if it's vulnerable, we have to patch our system. And as I mentioned before, patching is good, but you have to understand that maybe one of those attackers in the last 2 years attacked your digital certificate. So the organization, that anyone who uses OpenSSL, he has to think before it. He has maybe to revoke or reissue the certificate before he uses it. And finally, as Bruce Schneier, and he is one of the most famous security analysts, he said that after patching your system, you have to get a new public-private key session, and you have to update your SSL certificate, and you have to change your password immediately. All of us, we have to change our passwords because this bug is affecting all of us. And the summary, as Ira Winkler said, and he is the president of Information Security Association, he said that there have been and always will be bugs. Every time we live on this earth, it will be bugs, no way. And anyone who thinks that we have privacy on the internet, I'm sorry, but he is a fool. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.